I set aside my personal feelings and told him that I would inform him of my decision after the wedding. He seemed upset but didn't push the issue. 10 days ago they finally got married and we had a great time at the wedding. They were supposed to stay here for a couple more days after the wedding and then return home, so I was preparing to inform them of my decision, which was like this. But before I could do so, they all left for their honeymoon without even telling me. 2 days after their wedding, I woke up completely alone and everyone had gone. Many of their belongings were still at my house, so I decided to make some calls. But no one answered for quite some time, and I continued to worry about it. I had planned to tell them about my decision that very day, but I couldn't even get in touch with them for hours. Finally, around noon, Julia answered and casually informed me that they had all gone on their honeymoon and wouldn't be back for a week. I was stunned because I obviously expected that they would at least inform me of their plans before just leaving, even if I wasn't included. I felt offended that they didn't ask me, but I didn't want to be petty. So I started by asking why no one had informed me about any of this, and she gave me a poor excuse, saying they had forgotten to tell me, but she told me not to worry because they would be back soon. I tried to explain that wasn't the point at all, and my issue was that they simply left without a word or even a goodbye, and that was rude of them. I said I wanted to talk to my dad, but that's when her tone changed, and she said my dad was busy and didn't have time to talk to me. I still tried to stay calm and told her to let me know when he had time so that I could get in touch with him directly. And I said it politely, but she turned on me and suddenly went from being sweet to being a really biting and cruel stepmother. She told me that my dad was going to be busy for the next few days and asked me not to bother them. She went on to say that there was no need to act so hysterically just because they had left me behind, and she felt the need to remind me that I was no longer a child. My dad now had a new family, so I needed to accept that, and by the time they got home, she wanted me to stop worrying about myself and clean the house for them. Now, I don't know who she thought she was talking to, but she certainly wasn't going to talk to me like that. She hung up right after saying that, and my anger was literally through the roof. I decided not to call my dad after that and thanked the universe for not letting me accept his suggestion before I had seen this side of his new wife. There was no way in hell they were going to live with me. So, I personally packed all of their belongings as carelessly and badly as I could, stuffed them into a couple of cardboard boxes, and left them in the yard for them to find when they decided to return. I didn't care what would happen to those things, because they didn't belong to me, and they didn't belong inside a house that was mine either. After that, I went on with my life as usual and tried not to think about the betrayal I felt because of what my dad had done for no real reason. Yesterday, they finally returned from their honeymoon, and luckily, I was at work when they found all of their stuff in the yard. I had also changed the door locks in the meantime, so they couldn't get in either. My dad was extremely angry when he contacted me about it. He told me I was being a spoiled child and that I was overreacting because, to them, leaving me at home without notice wasn't something worth getting angry about, and they hadn't done anything wrong. I simply told him to take his boxes and leave, and if I saw them on my property when I got home, I would call the police. He insulted me and then hung up, but I had to get back to work and couldn't waste my time worrying about it. When I got home after work, I noticed they had taken their things and left, and I thought that was the end of it. But the most annoying part was yet to come, because around midnight, my dad called me and told me that Julia had something to say to me. She said she was sorry for the way she had spoken to me and retracted everything she had said. She would love to have a second chance to make amends with me and didn't want to be on bad terms with me over something so insignificant. I told her to shut up and leave me alone because I didn't need her fake apologies. I'm not stupid, and could tell why she suddenly wanted to pretend to be a happy family now that I wasn't going to let them live with me. If she really regretted her actions, she wouldn't have waited so long to realize she had messed up and would have apologized right after that phone call that day, or even during their vacation, for whatever it was. I'm sure my dad doesn't regret it either, but when he realized I wasn't going to forgive them, he chose to be sentimental with me and told me I was heartless for not letting them live with me. He said he was willing to share all the bills with me if I let him move back in, but he wanted to live in this house because it reminded him of my mother. So, it would be really selfish of me to kick them out like this without thinking about the repercussions that could have, because he just wanted to come back to feel closer to my mother apparently. He even said that Julia had just had a bad day that day and didn't mean anything she said. And even his daughters missed me, so they wanted me to let them come back and start over here. But I wasn't going to accept any of that. I always knew my dad had his eye on this house since the divorce. And now that he'd seen this side of Julia, he didn't want to risk anything. So I told him they could come back home because I wasn't going to change my mind. And then, out of nowhere, my dad started crying uncontrollably on the phone and accused me of being the most selfish daughter ever because I couldn't even let him live in the house where he'd spent the happiest days of his life over a simple disagreement I had with Julia. And because they hadn't taken me with them on their honeymoon, which wasn't even the main reason. He said I was being petty and cruel and that my mom would hate this ugly side of me. Am I the bad one for not allowing my dad and his new family to move back in with me after his new wife treated me poorly? And they didn't ask me to join them on their honeymoon?